Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this special edition episode. I am here with Michael, aka the Peace Dealer, which I love, by the way, Michael. And the topic of our special edition today is the 2020 beta the 2020 beta test. That was a beta test of me saying the beta
Right.
test. 2021 and beyond. And so I'm thrilled to have you here today, Michael. I've been seeing you on the Leo Kings platform, and I know that you are dear friends with Maru Matu, who I also adore. And so it's just great to have you here for your Astrology Hub debut. I'm excited to introduce you to our audience. And so can we just start with a little introduction? Tell us about your journey to astrology, how you got here to be a practicing astrologer today.
Absolutely. Very, very, very glad to be on here once again. Thank you so much for having me. I remember when we met, I think, at one of David's events. And
We
yeah,
met in Las Vegas?
I think it was Vegas we met at. Yeah.
That is so cool. I
If not Cali.
remembered feeling like I needed to go to that event. And it
Me
was so
too.
cool. Yeah, you do?
Yeah.
Yes,
I
awesome.
have a very amazing story about that event too. It was very tied to, it's actually why I live in Vegas right now.
Whoa.
Um, yeah, but and so it was really awesome meeting you there. And I know we talked about, working together. I think it was just kind of amazing how now we are, and it's way more perfect now too. So it's cool how things come back full circle. But yeah, I'm just very grateful once again to be here. This has been such an incredible journey. I feel like the stage that I'm on right now, where everyone's at, it's like we're taking everything this past decade has taught us to finally apply to the world at large and to deal with the issues of the world at large. So yeah, as far as like how I stepped on this journey, um, first of all, once again, I go by the Peace Dealer. I've been studying astrology for I think 8 years now. I started in 2012 under Clear Sight, another YouTube channel, and I didn't become the Peace Dealer until 2014 when I was staying with my uncle in Kansas. So what got me on this path? I grew up Christian my whole life. My mother, to this day, like we have weekly Bible studies, just so we can all kind of congregate each week and just kind of keep in touch with each other. So she's definitely brought me up in, sound traditional Christian doctrine, and was growing up, being taught that divination and astrology and all of this was of the devil. I never really thought like um, too much about it, but I always, seeked truth. And growing up, Christianity was really. A lot of people tell me I need to go out more or explore more. It's kind of not too sheltered, but like all I really knew was just this belief system and how it operated with the world. And around 2011, when this preacher Harold Camping was saying that the world was going to end, I had I was around like the wrong people, and I had gotten a DUI charge for a car I didn't even drive. And thankfully, I was able to get like a pretrial diversion and whatnot. But it got me looking soberly at my life, and I was asking, if I died right now, did I go hard for Jesus? Like, was I a lukewarm Christian, or was I a real Christian? And this got me really taking my faith seriously. And I was making plans to be a theologian and to really study the Bible. I was listening to a lot of Ravi Zacharias, and I wanted to apologize and defend the Christian faith and to understand people's intellectual or spiritual blocks to accepting Jesus in their lives. And I had always been into personality profilers. Myers-Briggs at the time was like my thing. Like, oh, you're an introvert, you're extrovert. Like, I was like, wow, this is it. I found something that can help me understand people. Little did I know, the natal charts is gonna bless my life completely.
Whoa.
But yeah, it's very intense. And the what really shifted gears for me, like late 2011 into like, it was a full year coming off of 2010 into 2011. I really, dug a little bit deeper into Christianity and strengthened my faith. So I had bought this book called Misquoting Jesus. And the reason for that is because I wanted to be square on the legitimacy of the Bible, because the Bible is supposed to be inerrant. I wanted to prove definitively that, the historicity of the Bible is sound. And it was reading this book that, first of all, the writer of this book, like me, also was a theologian, and he wanted to really study more Christianity to prove it. And this was when he realized the nature of how the Bible was, before there was a printing press. First of all, it wasn't like we see, before the Council of Ephesus and Nicaea that put all the books together. They were just manuscripts. And before a printing press, people had to copy words and, countless books and countless texts that meaning would be lost in. And it really went into how the Bible isn't necessarily as infallible as we're taught to believe. And around this time, ironically, Jupiter was like coming out my 12th into my first house. So I was just in a stuck position in my life. I was looking at get rich quick schemes on the internet to try and use internet marketing to make it out of my predicament. And I was just depressed. I was like, I thought Christianity was it. Like, what am I supposed to do with my life? And my younger sister, after church one day was like, hey, I could take you to this witch doctor or spiritualist. And, little did I know, his name was Bless. Little did I know that my life would change forever. So he's the one who kind of introduced me into African traditional spirituality. And he was practicing Santeria and Palo Mayombe. And this is a much darker version of this where you feed chickens to certain, Orisha and deities. And it's interesting because I still don't know to this day, because right before then, I just magically started watching horoscope videos like Marie Moore, Astrological, KRS. Like, I don't know. I really still to this day don't know what caused me to watch that, but I just started checking it out. And this was when I was like, okay, wow, this is kind of accurate. I still have not gotten my natal chart read, but I was like, okay, I'll look into astrology. So while I'm working with this guy who reads tarot, this is the first time I've ever seen a tarot reading done. And he's helping real people. He's actually exercising people, dealing with dark spirits within people's places. And it's funny because eventually around that time, I think like 2012 is when I joined Soul Garden, and I meet Christopher Witecki. I meet David Palmer before he's the Leo King. He was on that platform. Marcella, all sorts of amazing characters that would later go on to, develop their brand. And this is where I eventually got my first natal chart read by Christopher and also by David. And it changed my life. Like, I didn't even know that the natal chart, it was like, this is it. Like, this is what I was looking for. Like, I had no idea there was so much like detail here. And I just immediately, this is when I started watching KRS and all these like astrologers at the time who would give, definite. Astrology was very, very crucial in coming into knowledge of like the planets and signs and just kind of learning astrology at that basic level. So what's very interesting is the same individual who kind of helped me transition. He was an Aquarius. He helped me transition out of, the faulty way I looked at Christianity and kind of stepped into here, which I think was vital for me, because it turns out, long story short, he didn't have the most integrity too. He was a bit of a scam artist in the way he kind of preyed on victims using African.
Are you talking about the guy? Which guy? Are you talking about the guy who wrote the book about Jesus's misquotes, or the African spiritual?
The African spiritual guy.
Got it. Okay.
Which I don't think he himself is from Africa, but he's from America. But he kind of like he kind of came into the craft when he lived in Miami.
Okay, so he was kind of like not so integrous.
Not really. And it kind of keyed me into how, these people sometimes will prey on people to draw money from them. The stuff does work, but like his integrity with it wasn't all the way solid. I was lying outright to my mother, my youngest sister, and I, because we knew we couldn't tell her we were doing this. She wouldn't like that. But the stuff we had to do to hide it really revealed a lack of integrity in myself. And it taught me a huge lesson, which was so key at the time, because he was telling me, oh, you don't need astrology. Astrology is BS. We can just, control and manipulate things with the connection to the gods. Like, you don't need to wait for a transit or anything. And the whole time I was never really deterred. I was like, okay, whatever, because the astrology was just so true for me. Like, it was just ringing just an amazing chord. And this is what led into me going my separate ways after that chapter. It was a very important transition. And I ended up really just in 2012 starting my channel as Clearsight, doing like card horoscopes. And eventually, like late 2013, my mother never condoned of me smoking marijuana. She caught me smoking it in her house when I was living with her. And she felt that my influence in El Paso wasn't really good for me, that it's next to a border town, lots of drugs circulate. She felt I'd be safer to be with a masculine influence, my uncle, who is with his wife and kids in Kansas. So in 2014, like late 2013, I was over there. I had transferred to KU. And it was interesting because my uncle is also an Aquarius. So the African traditional spiritual is Aquarius. My uncle is an Aquarius. And I had wanted insight about my great-grandfather, who my great-grandfather on my mom's side, he built a gate at the Buckingham Palace. He built a church. He got people to stop worshiping monkeys in the village around there. My great-grandpa on my mom's dad's side was the witch doctor. Like, he was the one who kind of gathered the tribe together, and I wanted to know more about him. And the next day, my uncle just walks up to me and says, I'm the reincarnation of your great-grandfather. And and everything in this world can be explained by science. Everything magical, everything is all scientific. And aliens visited your great-grandfather and gave him an artifact so that when his brother held it, people would hit him with machetes and they wouldn't get any damage. And this actually formed our village. I remember my mom lightly talking about this, but for my uncle to kind of just tell me, and I didn't even tell him that I wanted to know more, I thought that was very Aquarian. And this is where he was telling me, again, stop doing astrology. Get your degree, get your college degree. There's a fraternity you can go to back in our village, and I could show you this real power. But he initially convinced me, and I was like, okay. And I had deleted my first channel, and I felt this sharp pain in my heart. And I'm a Gemini, right? So it wasn't like an emotional pain, but it was just like this sharp feeling. And I couldn't understand why I felt it. And so this is really weird, but like another couple of days ago, something just kind of flipped to me, and the idea of the peace dealer just came to me. I just kind of decided to remake the channel again, but to now organize it much different, actually be more professional with it. And that's when I became the peace dealer. 2014, I think January 2014, I created the channel. Now, around that time, while I was in Soul Garden, I was working with Iwana. She's an angel reader, and she worked closely with Chris at that time. We would, like, every week, she was in like Austria, I was here in America, so I would give her astrology, and then she would read my angel cards. And when I had first gotten to this path, I was very skeptical about Doreen Virtue angel cards. I was like, you guys, angels aren't even real like that. You guys aren't summoning angels. This doesn't work like that. Like, this is all fake spirituality. So there's certain things that Iwana would tell me, because she doesn't use Doreen Virtue angel cards. She's just more like, she works directly with the angels. But at that time, coming out of Christianity, I was just so skeptical. I started to question my faith in God. And thankfully, astrology was like just an amazing, like, magical tool to I was still getting into, but I was very skeptical. And I was like, oh, the angels aren't really like that. So that the very day a few days after I made the Peace Dealer, and I had started making certain planet and signs videos that I didn't know would end up really like making a name for myself. And my uncle had told me to shovel the snow. And I don't know, I was just very irritated because like there was really no snow outside. It was snow that I could shovel. In retrospect, I should have done it, but like I was just not trying to do that. And at that same day, my friend, the angel reader, Iwana, who's also a Gemini, she was saying she did a special initiation for me because the archangel that she said was around me was Haniel. And so she had done this special initiation with another angel, and she was saying, hey, be careful, like your whole life can change, stuff can kind of go a little crazy. And the whole time in my head I'm like, yeah, okay, nothing, no, it's not that serious, like this is just whatever. But I think less than 20 minutes later, my uncle storms in the room wondering why I haven't shoveled the snow, but was even more frustrated seeing that I had my YouTube channel back and I was doing the astrology, and he was trying to say that like, oh, there's spirits that you're summoning, I want to affect the kids, which I just really didn't believe. And he gave me an ultimatum. He said, you can leave my house or you could delete your YouTube channel. And I said, I'm going to peace out. Like, no hesitation. I was like, I guess I'm going to go then. And what's so crazy was that while in Soul Garden, there was someone who lived in Kansas. He lived in Kansas City, I believe. And so my uncle drops me off at his place. And immediately Iwana is calling people to help. She was really helpful in helping people kind of like help me transition through here. I had just joined Couch Surfers. I didn't know there was such a thing as like the Couch Surfer website where if people have a place to host, you pay like $20 a year and you can kind of adventure through that. So Matt, I'll never forget, shout out Matt. He was just calling people like to see who can kind of accommodate me. And it just so happens that someone in Venice, California needed her car driven from Wichita to Venice. So I got a bus ticket to Wichita, and I basically got to Cali without knowing. Like, it's interesting because Spirit before then has always been telling me, I'm like, I want to go on a spiritual adventure. And Spirit's like, just leave. And my Taurus rising is like, where am I going to stay? What am I going to do? And so I'm in a position where I don't know what's happening. Like, no choice but to have faith. And like everything literally works out. The ride to Venice was super smooth. I ended up being able to convince my mother to work for her remotely while she was still in El Paso in her pediatric practice. So I was helping build her medical insurance claims. And this is what helped me, afford an apartment out there in Koreatown while I was out there a few months, 2014. And this is what helped me finish the Planet and Sign series that, once again, really at the time I didn't realize impacted so many. But that's really the story of how I really became the Peace Dealer. And that really let me know firsthand, when you walk your path, the universe has your back 100%.
Whoa. Like, I asked that question, I had no idea what your answer was going to be. And it's the coolest story. Amazing. I have so many questions, like branches off of it.
Right.
I'm just going to start asking a few before so we are going to get to the 2020 beta test, why Michael is seeing 2020 as a beta test for 2021. We're going to get there. But I have been wanting to interview a Christian astrologer forever. Like, I've been, because I've known that there must be some out there. Mm-hmm. And I've reached out to several and they don't get back to me. I'm like, okay, it's not the time. It's not the right person. Right. And I know that you've probably, like, things have shifted a lot, but you're still looking at the Bible every week with your mom. Mm-hmm. And I'm so curious because I'm 13 years Catholic school. So nice. I've had like a huge journey with this myself. But, have you read the book, The Gospel According to Jesus?
No, that sounds is it by Kim Michaels?
I'm going to look it up. It's on my Audible.
That sounds very interesting.
It reminds me of what you were saying about like the misquotes of Jesus. It's basically goes through and finds like the passages that sound like the authentic master versus the things that were added for control. And
Exactly.
his basically, he opens it up and he's like, I mean, if the same guy said all these things, he was completely schizophrenic because because the same person can't say this and that. It doesn't make any sense. So he goes through and breaks it down. It was really amazing for me years ago when I was needing to sort of find peace with my religion of origin, you know. And I always felt like Jesus was cool, but like all that other stuff I never got, you know, like the whole church thing and the whole you know, control. Yeah. But so, okay, my question, now that you're an astrologer and you have this Christian background and this Christian family and you're doing the Bible every week, have you found a way to like remedy the seeming disconnect?
I have chills. It's such an amazing question because this past month, especially, and this year, it's all coming full circle. Like, I grew up Christian. I was very strong in my faith and belief in Christian. I ended up denouncing Christianity. And now I'm coming back to understand this faith because there's Christianity as it's taught in church, and then there's true Christianity. And what it really reminded me is that Christianity comes from astrology. I'm sorry, the Bible comes from astrology. And so there's an understanding of the Bible that is totally erroneous. I mean, there's a Harvard or Ivy League professor who studied the Bible and was able to discern that there's nothing in the Bible to assert that Lucifer is even an evil being. Like this is literally created. There's so much that Christianity and Catholicism has added to the doctrine that takes away from the truth of it. So, you know, as an astrologer, I get all these verses, Levitical verses about, and Revelations verses about how divination is bad and how astrology is bad. But one, none of these people have ever cast a natal chart. They have no experience in astrology. So they don't really know what they're talking. They don't even know that they're using these verses out of context. There's actually nothing in the Bible at all to assert that astrology is wrong to do outside of verses, like you said, added to control. And even those verses, if you put them in context, don't apply to the astrologer today that speaks, you know, the universe is created by God. So the real word of God and the language of truth is astrology. So, you know, it's, I can see why I was meant to be a Christian because I've also the first 8 years of schooling was in Catholic school. So like I've understood even outside Catholicism and in Christianity, I've been indoctrinated. I've known what it's felt like to feel like I know better because I believe in Jesus and you don't. I know what it's like to be stubborn. I know what it's like to beg the question with the Bible. I've used to defend the Bible. Like this is what I truly wanted to do with my heart. So it's like, I understand the Christians so deeply. I understand their blocks and the pathology that goes into clinging so much faith in this book. What this weekend taught me was that my faith in God doesn't come from the Bible. It comes from astrology. And the Bible edifies astrology. This is where I've learned recently about Masonic influence in these books and how there's a hidden message in these books to kind of, you know, make an allegory of, once again, the stars and the relationship between the stars without, you know, spelling out too, you know, specifically. But this really just helped me understand more the truth in the doctrine of Christianity and how, you know, just like Jesus was criticized by Pharisees for healing on the Sabbath, right? The Pharisees are like, the Torah said you're not supposed to do this on Sunday. And Jesus had to just keep it real with them. Like, you know, this is how you heal though. It's no different than Christians criticizing astrologers like Doreen Virtue, denouncing astrology. This is no different than the Pharisees who were rebuking Jesus when astrologers are using these tools to heal and help people. You know what I mean? So it just helped me kind of restore back the truth out of the Bible. I feel like the book was used to kind of water down the truth and it's just took it back to the stars. It's so great.
You're seriously making me cry over here because I have known that there is such a healing here for so many people, especially people who have been raised in the church, a church that says astrology is evil, it's the devil, they're not allowed. And yet in their heart, it's like, but no, they're looking up at the stars every night as little kids and going, I feel connected to that. I feel like there's wisdom in that. And they've had to be in the closet about it, or they've had to hide that part of themselves, or split themselves so that they can fit in. And there's such an opportunity here for a massive healing, for it to be like, look, no, it's not one or the other. It's both and that tendency to use something good and twist it for individual gain and agenda. It proliferates every area of life, including Christianity, including Catholicism, including all of it, and what you just said about, this is the other reason why I want to cry, is because I've also always seen that astrology is the great unifier. It truly sits really above all of the divisiveness.
The one true science. Yes.
And it brings us together. It's like, no. There's room and space for all of you and all of it. Don't need to be fighting about any of it. It's above the like chatter of no, I'm right, you're wrong. This is the way it is,
Can I add on to what you said? Because
yes,
it does make one want to cry, because it's just so much embedded deception and fear. I was speaking to one woman who the reverse happened in her case. She goes by Mina Mystic right now. She goes by Cheyenne. She recently is dating someone that brought her into the faith of Christianity. And I can see very clearly how it's kind of like the opposite. Like, she grew up more in the occult, more in the wisdom of magic. And when she was Mina Mystic, she was on fire. Like, she was really versed with tarot cards. There was a way she'd express herself that was over-sexualized. And perhaps now that she's more Christian, now that she's found Christ through Christianity, she's kind of denounced all that. She carries herself in a much more respectable way. Not that she wasn't worthy of respect before. In fact, I like that Lilith deep sexual expression she had. But one thing that broke my heart when we were talking, because I was asking, because I can see how the element of Christianity balances what she was doing before, but she had mentioned something that almost broke my heart. And she had mentioned how she feels more alive being Mina Mystic. She still feels that what she was doing wasn't really wrong, but the only reason why she feels it's not is because of the indoctrination. Like, she's not telling me this, but I can tell it's because of how people have demonized what she's done, and it has helped many people. I'm sure there's a form of what she was doing before that she probably cleaned up with Christian doctrine, or because one thing I will love about Christianity is there are certain facets of integrity that it does teach you. That's one thing I appreciate about my mother. My mother, growing up with my mother, she would leave church to church because there was no Christ in the church. She went to one church where they told her, hey, you're being too evangelical with these kids. We don't want you to really teach them too much of the gospel. And she didn't know how to take that. Like, it's like the spirit has left. So she's taught me how, okay, real Christians still exist. My mom to this day does not believe in astrology, and I don't really believe certain facets of how she believes in Christianity, but I can at least see how the integrity that leads was molded by this doctrine. But it broke my heart just to see her, in her heart, she still wants to be Mina Mystic, but she feels like it's wrong.
It's bad.
Right.
That's what it does. Well, at least in my own experience, I would question what I knew. I would think that what I know couldn't be right because I was being told it wasn't right. And that's what I actually, it wasn't even that long ago. I was a host of a summit, and I was assigned to interview a very famous pastor. And after the interview, he, off camera, started asking me about my faith. And what I told him is that I was born and raised Catholic, but now I find more connection with God when I'm swimming in the ocean, or when I'm under the stars, or when I'm with a tree, or like I find God in nature. And I swear, Michael, this man like pounced on me and was like, he was out to save my soul, right?
Mm.
And he just was telling me how that's not true. That is, I may think that's connection with God, but it's not. And here's all the reasons why. And I walked away from that conversation. This was really not that long ago. I mean, a couple years,
Yeah.
feeling just like, oh my God, like, there's something wrong with me, and there's something wrong with the way I connect with God, and there's something wrong with maybe it is evil, maybe there is that, you start to question yourself. And I can see how insidious it is, that
Mm-hmm.
real vulnerable spot, that real tender spot enough in us of our communion with God,
Yeah.
our connection with God, source, whatever you want to call it. And it was amazing to see how it was still vulnerable in me, even years after being
Years.
very outside
The
of it.
hold is still very strong.
Yes,
It's
yes,
proud.
yes.
Yeah.
The other thing, gosh, there was something else you said that was so, I was thinking about your friend. That's okay. But this is so good, and I'm so grateful. And this is like, it's falling in my lap, this search I've had for
Right.
the person with the Christian background who could speak about how it's actually more the same than it is different. It's like when we find Vedic and Western astrology, and you know how there's that big, huge divide.
Right.
It's like, but
Right.
actually, it's maybe probably a lot more alike than it is different. So let's like
Right.
meet there.
Right. And you can like blend both. To add what you said too, about which I mean, I've had experiences like that too. It's hard because the road to hell is paved with good intentions. These people mean well, but the
Yes.
seductive nature of this rhetoric is just guilt and shame manipulation. And the one thing that the Bible has taught me is that every instance of an individual finding God did not happen because some pastor or preacher convinced them to. It's always God that speaks to the person's heart. When Saul was killing Christians, it was Jesus that showed himself and, caused him to become Apostle Paul. That moment is indicative of all of our lives when Christ reveals itself to us and we find the truth, because Jesus is the truth. What this really helped me release for so long is I felt that I cannot have my belief in God without the Bible, because it holds all this wisdom. And this really made me realize, which will be very controversial to many Christians, but if I took away the Bible and the Bible never existed, my faith in God would still exist, because everything in the Bible is written in the stars, the main tenets of it. And that was so hard for me to kind of release, because I felt, okay, yeah, there's astrology, but these verses say this. And I realized over time, these verses spell out verbatim dynamics in astrology. But if you don't know about it, if you're not versed in the craft, then anyone can tell you that it's evil, which it's just kind of crazy, the reverse psychology that's ended up, like, the one thing that is actually closest to divinity is being demonized, which is
Oh my
just so
gosh.
crazy.
But that's the way it always is. So the
Yeah.
black magic, darkness, it doesn't have any power on its own. It has to take the truth and just bend it.
Right.
And that's what happens. So it's taking the light and just like a little bit off. And so then you're just on a whole nother trajectory. You're off from the truth, and it gets further and further the farther you go. But this thing around guilt and shame is so huge. And I feel one of the biggest invitations of this year, with all this Capricorn, Saturn influence. And I have Sun in Capricorn. I have conjunct Venus in Capricorn in the 12th house. Like, there's the heavy Saturnian, Aquarius rising. So there's, I have a lot of Saturn. I have that guilt thing has always been
Right.
so big and so deep and so hard to like break free from. But this year is the first time where I'm realizing how, there's a collusion with darkness when we allow ourselves to stay in that place of guilt.
Mm-hmm.
That it doesn't serve anyone or anything. And there's this little illusion around guilt too, that like it's helpful somehow to the people you feel guilty towards, to the thing you feel guilty about, whatever it is. But it's like, no, none of that, because it's not real. None of it's real. None of it's the truth. None of it's God. And so there's just been this opportunity, I feel, and I don't know if all of you are feeling that too out there, especially those of you who have like struggled with this guilt thing, that this year there's been a releasing of that.
Oh, so much. I'm having my Saturn return too. So it's just like, nice. finally gone. And
amazing.
To kind of add a little bit more on the notion of the pastor, because that, I mean, to go through that and to start feeling, negative after it says a lot, because if that person was truly a man of God, you're supposed to feel peace after that. Right. So it's like, for anyone watching this, if you want to know if you're dealing with a true Christian, we know, shout out to young Pharaoh. He broke down the etymology of Christian person. Apparently, I mean stupid person, but we know that Christianity comes from being like Christ, right? Christos. So if you're being like Christ, we know in the Bible, no point was Jesus arguing with people about the faith. Was Jesus trying to shove or prove? So how are you going to be trying to be like Christ, but you're trying to intellectually judge? And we've never seen Jesus judge anybody. In fact, Jesus had to stop people from stoning Mary and told other people, if you have not sinned, cast the first stone. So if I truly believe in God and Jesus, my duty to you, whether I don't like what you're doing, whether I don't believe in your faith, is to be Christ, to show you love. I'm going to treat you the way I want to be treated. Jesus told me I shouldn't judge people. It's not my place to judge, because God judges, right? So if I believe in God, and if I know that salvation comes from your personal relationship between your heart and God's heart, it's not my place to tell you about your faith. It's not my place to judge you. It's my place to love you and lead by example with the full faith that God will speak to you. And one day God will save you if you need to be saved. Because I don't believe people need to be saved. I believe people just need to be themselves, right? But like, if you believe in God, why are you trying to do God's job? And why are you trying to, it's God that changes people's minds and lives. You're not God. So all you can do is be like Christ. And it's just so interesting how unconsciously people don't realize they're being the Pharisees that Jesus was rebuking or trying to deal with.
I don't even know that God judges. I think God loves. I think God is love. It's wow, this is so good. And you talk about amazing Christians and how that there's an integrity piece that Christianity can bring in. And one of the Christians that I love the most is Dave Ramsey. Do you know him?
I've heard of him. Does he give financial information?
Yes.
My youngest sister quotes him all the time.
Love him. And you know what? He's like super Christian. And so for me, like, I'm not so into that at this point, but every single thing that he quotes from the Bible, just energetically, I'm like, yeah, that's like straight on. Like when we have debt, we're slaves, period. When we have debt, we're slaves.
My youngest sister told me to call my credit cards up because Dave Ramsey said we shouldn't have debt, or he referenced that.
But he doesn't say we shouldn't have debt because there's some moral thing, or because it's because he wants, it's this integrity thing. And as long as we have debt, we're slaves to someone or something. And so I've so benefited from his influence in my life. I feel like he's had such a Saturnian presence for me. And he's quoting the Bible at the end of every one of the episodes, and most of the quotes, I'm like, yeah, that's like right on, Okay, let's go to the thing we thought we were going to talk about, which happens a lot, which is the 2020 beta test. We're gonna have to rename this because I want everyone who has this thing that you and I are talking about to know that this is what we talked about, so that they can.
If you ever want to talk more about it, whenever you want, we totally can.
So I have so many questions, because what I want to start doing is breaking down those verses in the Bible that you say are actually astrological. I think it'd be so amazing to actually start going through those. Yeah. Gemini Brett has done that a little bit. Every verse, every verse?
We can break down every verse, because what's important for what this really taught me is that there's an argument that should not be an argument. Like, there is no Bible verse in the Bible that soundly debunks astrology or actually denounces it. If it's in a nutshell, verses against astrology, you'll see Daniel and Moses dealt with astrologers that worked for the king. And so that's supposed to show God's power is stronger than the astrologers that we're using. And people take that to mean that astrology is bad, when it's just talking about astrologers he were using instead of the craft, because we know the three wise men used astrology to find Jesus. They read the stars. Right. The whole notion about it being demonic and of the devil is not in the Bible. That's made up, and it's made from people who don't have experience of astrology, so they don't have the authority to disprove it. And then no divination comes from Leviticus and the Pentateuch, which applies to those who are ordained and called, because the gifts of the Spirit and so many facets of gifts in the Bible mirror New Age practices that Christians frown on. The only reason why they're allowed to do it is because they were called. So people using Levitical verses to debunk astrology are taking it out of context and doesn't apply to the authentic practitioner, because God called you into this path. And so you're not just using, like, there's wisdom in not divining if you're not a priest, right? Because you're not protected by certain spirits, but it's just all taken out of context.
Well, in priest and priestess, it just at a certain point, it meant they had gone through a certain level of initiation, and they were at a certain level of mastery. They had a certain esoteric and metaphysical understanding, and they wouldn't hurt themselves or others in their practice. Exactly. It's not because it was evil or bad to do, anyways, wow, we could go on forever. Right. I mean, this is so, again, fascinating. And if you all want to go in this direction in terms of like understanding the biblical references to astrology, which I personally find fascinating, let us know in the chat, because we can do more of it. Okay. And again, for me, this is just opportunity for healing, for forgiveness for so many people who still carry this, even if it's like lineage wise, maybe intellectually they don't carry it anymore, but it's still in our bodies, so there's a lot of opportunity here to have that shift in perception that allows a new level of freedom. And like you said, if you walk away and you feel bad, then it wasn't from God and it wasn't Christ-like. If you walk away feeling inspired and loving and loved and seen and understood and all those things, that is Jesus, God, etc. I was reeling for days from that interview. The people closest to me know that I literally went through a process for days of feeling bad about myself, questioning myself, questioning even the way I showed up with him. Did I do something wrong? It was bad. It was hard. Wow. But go ahead.
And wow. And no, I thought you were perhaps like low, but I didn't know it was that like reeling. So just to kind of emphasize what you said, because someone can twist what you said to mean like, oh, if it feels good, then it's of Jesus. If it feels bad, then it's not. Because someone can tell you something that's the truth that kind of breaks your ego, right? But instead of feeling bad, you'll feel peaceful because now you know the truth, right? So, if you're feeling like someone that is a messenger of God is not going to tell you anything that leaves you feeling distraught. It's not about feeling bad as much as it is feeling less of yourself, right? The message of Christ gives a vibration of truth and peace that should strike a chord with your soul. So it's not even about intellectually agreeing with people, because I'm sure the devil or someone negative can tell you things that you like and make you feel happy afterwards, right? Mm-hmm. But it's just this sense of peace and inner knowing that you're going to leave with that word. The word of God should never make you feel, horrible about yourself and judging, which I think that's beautiful, that you can, and very Capricorn too, to feel God through nature and feel the essence of, everything around you, which is super awesome. So once again, this is an amazing conversation. Like, I'm very grateful we were able to find you.
And thank you for clearing that up. That was a great clarification point. Thank you. All right, let's talk about the 2020 beta test. What does that mean? Why do you see this as a beta test, and a beta test for what?
Oh my God, this is it's everything that we've been and this year has taught me that nothing is random. Like all the dark shadow work and everything that has led up to me and us coming to this point was to prepare us for this next decade, because this now got me to see into the wisdom of cycles, and everything is coming full circle. So the beta test is referencing 2020's Saturn transit into Aquarius with Mars. We know that Saturn entered 0 degrees around March with Saturn, which is huge, 0 degrees. Mars is in Aries right now, but Saturn retrograded back into Capricorn. So that is a beta test. While it went into the collective social sign of Aquarius, the powers that be introduced elements into society to literally beta test how we react, how we protest against it. How we know that Saturn is limitations. As soon as it went into the collective social sign, we had limitations in social function through quarantining and censorship of posts, which is just really weird. And this is all a beta test to see how do we react to this? How do we react? I'm under the belief that the pandemic that we're going through, the last time Jupiter and Pluto were in Cancer, we had H1N1. Then when they were in Virgo, we had H3N2. And now that they're back again in Capricorn, we have coronavirus, but this time Saturn was there going through Capricorn of planning, execution, strategy. So this virus was manufactured and pretty much, spread. Let's say, it was accidental that it was spread out to the populace. A lot of what's now happening is beta testing how the people who created this pandemic or plandemic, or without being too conspiracy sounding, this energy is instituting how we can beta test new protocol in our society to see how much we can control the populace. And it's so very important we beta test with psyops and experiences how people will react to this, so that we can now know moving into 2021 how to further enforce this. Because what's going to happen is October, all this energy is going to go direct, and then Jupiter and Saturn are going to go through the 0 degree aqua point. So we're going to see everything that happened the first part of 2020 times 10, alpha overdrive. The beta test had to retrograde, kind of like we're driving a car. And if Saturn also represents our psychic abilities and potential, we beta tested this awakening of our senses. Now it's back in Capricorn, so we can change our lives with it. And we're moving forward 2021 to now that we've awakened ourselves and knowledge of ourselves, connect with people all over the world. Because the Saturn and Aquarius integrity test is, can we resolve our differences and come together? Because if we don't, we're going to be taken over by these globalists and people that want to literally control us. So when I say beta test, for the past 5 months, we've all been beta tested with these contact tracings, because we have to see before there's more waves of this, how are people going to react and what can we do? And it's very terrifying for me, because a lot of people kind of just gave in to what they were wanting to test anyway. A lot of the complaints and the resistance at the beginning of the year from people who were labeled anti-mask or horrible, they're now coming to see that they were right. A lot of this was really exaggerated. There's an agenda behind a lot of this. And it's so easy to see as an astrologer. I remember you were kind of asking, you wanted me to mention, like, what did I think moving into the year was going to happen versus what happened. And a lot of astrologers, I know New York Times did this article this year that tried to discredit astrology. A lot of astrologers predicted the economic crash that was going to happen with Uranus and Taurus. I have many live videos where I was like, hey guys, as soon as Saturn reaches the 3rd decade of Capricorn, you're going to see the collapse of the system. You're going to see things fall down. I had no idea it was going to happen exactly the way it was going to happen with the coronavirus, but I knew we were going to see the end of this as we know it, and we were going to see the collapse of the economy. I just didn't expect things to be as crazy and as real. Like the experience for you, me, and many people were we knew this was going to happen, but we didn't think it was going to happen this real, like, and this quickly and this pressing. And there's still so many people who don't know what's happening. They don't the stars.
Okay, so Michael, we're having a little bit, and I don't know if it's just me, but I think we're having a little bit of a connection issue. I don't know if something just happened with your internet, or maybe it's mine.
Oh, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but
Okay.
it's just the last few things have been like cutting in and out a little bit.
I think it's my mic.
It's your mic? No. It feels like an internet connection thing.
It just said right now my internet connection is unstable.
Shoot. Okay. We gotta keep going. We gotta talk about this more. Shoot.
Still unstable right now, and is it like glitching in and out?
Well, your video is frozen, but now you're back. Okay. All right. Okay, maybe it was just a little glitch in the matrix there.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, yes. So what I just understood from what you said is that the way that you're seeing it is that there is a beta test. There's a beta test almost like on both sides.
Yes.
So there's like, let's just go Star Wars here.
Yes. Next year is Star Wars, by the way.
Okay, so we got the light and the dark going, and on Team Dark, we got like, how much can we control? How much can we manipulate? How much can we like divide and conquer, right? And then you're saying on Team Light, you know, Luke and, you know, the Force,
Right.
got how are we going to respond? How are we going to come together? How are we going to awaken? How are we going to understand our power?
Yes.
And utilize our power and exercise our power in this time? And what is our power? What is our superpower? Is it, it's love, right? I mean, to me, it's like so obvious. Our superpower is love. So now for people in which that feels, you know, this is a super divisive issue. This is a super divisive time. Like there's divide over everything. Mm-hmm. And for people in which that invokes a feeling of wanting to combat that, or wanting to like say you're wrong, or right. You know, what do you invite from people where there is this chasm in the way that we're experiencing or seeing what's happening?
That's a really great question. That's such a good question. I think a lot of this is because of Neptune and Pisces, because Neptune and Pisces, whereas Virgo discriminates, Neptune sees the whole in the collective, right? But the way it's being done is so deceptive, out of integrity. Like in integrity, it's pure, but out of integrity, this is what's using unity to divide people. You need to unify to this group, or you need to unify to this group. And it's kind of like blending certain issues that have their own unique, you know, sense to themselves. So we see this divide from the individual at that Uranus and Taurus energy that's coming into their own value versus the collective Capricorn Aqua energy that has to enforce the individual so that people don't go crazy, right? And it's so to kind of the answer to this is North Node in Gemini. What is your individual truth? Because aligning with the truth of you is what's going to connect everybody. Because when everyone's aligned in truth, we have unity, because everyone's, you know, which sounds very easy, but if you focus individually on you and how you're bringing truth into the experience, not opinion and not what you're supposed to say, but the truth that's getting people canceled, this is what is really going to clear the deception. And it's so fascinating how you can see this conflict being played out by the planets, because you have Uranus at Taurus that's warring with Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter, especially as a square. And we see this evident with that globalist collective influence, with all that power there in Saturn and all the plutonic energy that's unveiling and revealing the corruption in government. And then you have Uranus that's represented by Donald Trump, who has Uranus on his sun. In Taurus, he took back the influence of the bank and the money. And he's literally standing for the American people and for people in the world to kind of, have their relationship with limited government instead of, and I'm using Trump as an example as how Uranians are kind of championing this, but this energy within him and within us is having to deal with this with the Neptune sextile and the square that is twisting his words and trying to kind of make him look crazier than he is. Once again, I'm just using Trump as an example because he's the face of this right now.
I can feel the uproar right now. This is, again, these things that we're so divided over. It's like we can't even have the conversation because it's so triggering. It's so triggering.
That's the most important thing you said, though, because the conversation is where the truth comes in. And so if we can stop you from getting the conversation and censor your words, the truth will never come out.
Well, and then we're censoring each other.
Exactly.
Like we don't even need it. They don't even need to do it anymore. We're just doing it to each other. Oh, delete, censor, like block. I don't want to be friends with you. I can't even listen to you. I can't even like hear you for a second. You're wrong. And I'm right. And
really?
This is so much of the invitation. And we've talked about this so much with Rick Levine on the Cosmic Connection and the challenge for us all to be open to listen to each other.
Yes.
And listen deeply with that intention to truly understand. And I may not agree with you, but I'm very curious as to why you see it that way.
Seriously.
Can you please just enlighten me? Because from my vantage point, I can't even for a moment see why you would think that. So help me. Not you're wrong, and I'm not even going to listen for a second. And I think this is, again, this higher like invitation that is so hard for us as humans. And something that you said made me want to pull up this thing that I saw on Natasha Alter, who I had my first reading with in 2012. Oh, nice. And she continues to be my fairy godmother and my daughter's fairy godmother. She's amazing. But she posted something on her Facebook the other day. I was like, I just love this. It's a guy. He looks very outdoorsy. And it says, I should know him. Duncan Trussell? I don't know him. Okay. Some poor, phoneless fool is probably sitting next to a waterfall somewhere, totally unaware of how angry and scared he's supposed to be.
Right.
Some poor, phoneless fool is probably sitting next to a waterfall somewhere, totally unaware of how angry and scared he's supposed to be. And that's the thing, right? Like I've noticed, and I did these experiments early on in the COVID thing, where I would tune into the headlines or the news. I'd spend a day like doing that, and then I would spend the next day not doing it. And then I would try it again, and then I would not do it. And it was astounding, the difference in my life experience, whether or not I tuned in or I didn't. Even if I didn't agree with what I was hearing, the fact that I was just absorbing it and bringing it in, it was agitating, and it was like, it was tension building. And the days I didn't, I could experience peace.
No, that's fascinating, and that quote is terrifying because it gives new meaning to this Neptunian influence. Because I've always seen Neptune. I've come to learn Neptune is the media and the collective emotions in Pisces that broadcast through these multimedia sources the experience of what's supposed to be. But we know in its negative, Neptune and Pisces is the fraud. So it's like these broadcast channels are being used to make people afraid, to enforce that Capricorn lack of integrity. Because, Capricorn is integrity and Pisces is divinity. So these forces are divine, but they're being distorted. And it's very amazing how, we are being told how to feel. We are being told what's right and wrong. And what woke me up this year, ironically, was being willing to be wrong. Because what set me free was accepting, because let's take Black Lives Matter and the police. Before, I wasn't even into politics. I don't even consider myself into politics. I've lost certain people stopped following me and don't listen to me anymore because I did not demonize Trump. They just label me a Trump supporter because I don't say negative things about him. I just say the truth about everyone. I don't like to be unbiased. And that automatically makes me a Trump supporter. So it's kind of interesting. The reason why I did become a supporter of Trump is because I looked at the criticisms against him and I just saw that what's being said about him isn't true. So why lie about someone who's doing their job? And what I mean by that is not just Trump, but like everyone, regardless of your party affiliation, that walks in integrity, who has been facing these integrity attacks for doing the right thing. And my attitude towards the police, my attitude towards, facets of being an American, I kind of walked with certain held beliefs that I had to come into the understanding were never really true. They were just, illusions and opinions about, all policemen being horrible people or America being such a horrible country, certain things that coming into this year, I never really believed too strongly, but was still lingering. And it wasn't until I was ready to be wrong. Like I had to really listen to understand. And this really dropped the scales from my eyes. And it really awakened me to the deceptive nature of how people are told to think. It's way worse than I assumed. And the end of this decade is taking everything we faced this decade and it's everything we swept under the rug and it's putting it in our face. And we have to deal with it now. And so this divisiveness is very reminiscent to that Bible parable about the wheats and the tares. And we're starting to see who's actually the wheats and who's the tares, who's actually living righteously with integrity and who's faking the funk. And this ironically is polarizing in the actions people are taking, how they're responding to these beta tests, because Capricorn's all about integrity. So your reactions to this, whether you're out there protesting or not, whether you're out there voting or not, is going to align with the integrity of your actions and what you're awakening and the courage to stand firm. Because for someone who's never met me or you before and can just hurl all this negativity because of a belief, okay, not because I slapped someone in the face, not because I sexually abused someone, because I shared my beliefs. It's pathological. And it's a mental illness. It's exposing the true natures of people. There's no reason why you can't listen objectively to what someone believes and respectively agree to disagree. But there's a reason why people are so extremely polarized to the sharing of this because of the emotions they've invested to these beliefs that they tie their characters to. And the truth exposes that they never really knew anything in the first place. And that's a lot for someone to accept. And so they now blame you for expressing that truth when you were just being true. Like you can't help but be true. So,
oh my gosh, Peace Dealer / Michael, thank you for bringing these things up and for doing it in a way that I personally am experiencing as non-polarizing.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate, and I hope you all are too. I don't know what's happening in the chats and all that stuff, but to be able to talk about it respectfully. I know that there's certain people that they don't say what they really think or feel or believe because of the shaming that's happening.
Oh, it's bad.
There's so much shaming.
So much shaming.
And it's like I had an experience today where I was having a very emotional time with my daughter and homeschool and all this stuff. But I had this someone who criticized me in the audience saying it's white privilege that I even get to be worried about my child's homeschool situation. Like that shows how white privileged I am. And it was like, wow, like, whew, isn't it human? Like, isn't it? And isn't almost every mom, if not every mom, like that innate wanting for your child to be happy and to be like taken care of. Like it was it was so interesting to have that experience though, and then to feel like, oh shoot, like I probably shouldn't talk about homeschool anymore, but then to realize like I shouldn't go on that track either.
Right.
But there's so much, happening that's just, it's shaming people into silence or into judgment of themselves. And that's the dark side winning. That is the dark side winning. So that's definitely not the answer here at all.
And that's why the beta test kind of terrified me, because it's like, we're supposed to put our differences aside. Like there's certain things I don't agree with, let's say someone who supports Black Lives Matter, or someone who is certainly against their opinion of police brutality, or the president, or just anything, or astrology, right? I have my beliefs, but I need to listen to what you believe, because I need to understand where you're coming from. And I'm not going to respond to prove you wrong. We need to come to a consensus, but no one wants to come to a consensus. They want to be right. And so if the world does not get through this, there's a huge fit. And I don't want to get fear-mongery here, but this is where America's coming on its Pluto return. The last time America was here, it had a Revolutionary War. The Civil War that America had, Neptune was leaving Pisces and Uranus was getting ready to go into Gemini. So we have Revolutionary War energy. We have Civil War energy. America is more divided than it's ever been. Leave it to a Gemini to divide the nation without even trying. And it's very amazing that Trump is the mechanism that's dividing people. He's not divisive, but whether he wants to or not, he's dividing people, because that's the North Nodal Gemini delineation for those who are ready for truth and those who want to fight against truth. And it's outside of Trump, but more so what he's representing, and more so what we represent too. And I mean, I've heard saying 2 + 2 is 4 is white privilege, and not wearing a mask is white privilege. So the shame is just, it's crazy. Like people are just so emotionally charged. It's like, do you know we can hear what you're saying? Like you're not even making sense. But the thing is, for the past decade, we've normalized this. We slowly but surely normalized, going away from Christ, embracing and normalizing evil, which doesn't mean that you're bad. It just means that you're against nature. You're against truth. Some of the most evil things are dressed as good so that we accept and embrace them. And so everything we're experiencing now is a symptom of how majority of the world has not embraced truth, swept it under the rug. Now we need it. Now it's hard to recognize. And the reason why people are dividing against each other is because they've wanted to do this the whole time. It's like the pressures we've seen happening bursting open. And 2021 is going to fully burst open and start the next decade with a new normal. If you think of everything the past 10 years, the random shootings, the deaths, it's like we would have our experience, and then something would happen in society that spikes up, like someone died on TV, or there was a shooting, or there was a scandal. So the next decade, 2021, is that peak we have, boom, that's the new normal. And that's where we're about to actually, experiences like riots, looting, Chaz, it has to happen, because the cycle that birthed this country is coming back around. And so the descendants of people who established countries all over the world, the immigrants, this is all coming full circle. How people feel about that, how the ancestry comes through, the clashes in whether one can accept this country as what it really is, which, was very grateful for me, because it was a huge block for me to get over my reservement and judgment in this country. And for the first time in a long time, I've been happily to be proud to be American, because there's what the media tells you about America, and then there's what real life tells you about Americans and people around the world, and how, most people are not as racist as the media has tried to portray. And there's such hypocrisy. You can't have Obama outside the Mount Rushmore and say he's in front of 4 amazing founding fathers, and then when Trump's there, they're all racist all of a sudden. So it just really revealed all sorts of like deception that's been in our lives. And I've never felt more free. Like when I was expressing the truth and losing followers and friends, I gained literally 5 times plus that. and a block from my heart released that I didn't even know I was carrying unconsciously, that didn't allow me to really express myself towards others because I wasn't speaking. I was afraid to speak the truth in a certain sense until I just blasted it out. And like, I've never felt freer. I feel so amazing.
So what you just said about this, awesome, by the way. I'm so happy for you. And you are giving me hope for the future because what you just said about the spikes, you know, and that's the new normal. That's what they want the new normal to be, but we don't have to allow that to be the new normal in any way, shape, or form. And what you just experienced, that in being in your truth and being in your light and being allowing yourself to not be run by programs, and how, yes, you lost some people, but you gained so much more.
Right.
That to me is the model that we can all rest in. It's like, in that truth of who you are, yes, you're going to leave some things behind. You're going to leave some people, things that no longer resonate with the truth of who you are right now. And look at what you gain in that process. Look at who you become. You gained freedom, real freedom. You gained friendship, real friendship. Based on truth and who you actually are, not who you want to project because you hope people like you.
Right.
Which then you never feel loved anyways because you're never being yourself.
So true.
So much good stuff. So tell me, if you could mock up the best decade forward, if you could create it, what would it look like? Like what, you know, we know what some people would like the future to be, but we also know that we're a lot more powerful than that. So what would you like the future to be?
That's a really great question. I think my Capricorn energy makes me look at things too realistically and cynically, that I never really thought of how good it can go. Ooh. And so,
here's an invitation.
Right. Thank you.
We need the power of your imagination, imagining something beautiful.
Right. Ironically, this next 10 years, specifically the next 4 years, is the greatest collective test of our kind. We very realistically have the opportunity to create a utopian paradise. It's just, we also have the ability to create a nuclear holocaust. And this is going to go into how well we can really, you know, come together, because this collective energy is in a position that is going to have us reevaluate and examine the borders between nations and how we connect as a globe, instead of, you know, separate us with nationalities, race, color, sex, identity politics that really just divide us. You know, at the end of the day, we're all spirits, we're all beings, we're all souls. So this is it's interesting, because what the last parts of this year did was expose corruption and darkness that needs to be addressed. And so I'm a huge believer that some things need to get worse before they get better. If confronting the darkness of this collective is going to incite certain riots and wars, and that's really the best way we can get through, then hard times that we're going to go through this next decade will make us strong people. And even in the face of division, I feel like the best part of this next decade, which I think the next decade is going to be beyond amazing, it's just the first part is humanity coming face to front with the fact that most of us do not like each other, and most of us have issues that we have been stubborn with dealing with. And so we have to have these conversations. We have to deal with them. We have to come together. We will not resolve this unless we come together, because that's going to expose the players and agents who seek to divide us. And I feel like the best way we can make, one of my missions is to, which thank y'all, because, you know, it's the Rick Levines, it's the Astroladas, it's the Mary Moores, it's all of, it's the wave of astrologers and healers that help kind of pave this, that will add strength to missions like mine to bring astrology to the school, because little children need to be learning this. Like this is so important. Like the astrological illiteracy is the problem that the world has right now.
Are you interested in that?
It's my dream. Like I
Oh
want
my
this
gosh.
to be in legislation.
We're talking later. Okay, that's amazing. I'm so happy to hear everything you just said. And the truth is, Michael, not only do we not like each other, but the truth is we don't like ourselves. We don't like ourselves. And that's why, again, astrology is so beautiful, because it allows us to understand ourselves and see the beauty in our design and the uniqueness, and that there's no mistakes. Every single thing is exactly as it should be. And there's nothing wrong. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with you.
Nothing wrong. Yeah.
You know, and that to me is the ultimate, you know, for people to start to love themselves. We cannot love each other if we don't love ourselves. It's impossible. So starting there, and everything you just said, all this darkness that has been revealed in the world is also getting revealed in ourselves. And that's why we're, like you said earlier, you know, oh, well, then it's your fault. Like, I can't deal with you because we don't want to look at ourselves and go, oh my God, there's like some stuff in there that's unresolved that I need to work on. And that's okay. Like, that's okay. You know, that's nothing, you know, that we can embrace you still, even in that. You know, and so then you get to see how amazing and beautiful you actually are.
So true.
And not that overlay that's been there, that film, you know, that dust, that dirt, that grime that's covering the mirror and the truth. So
well said.
Unbelievable. I had no idea where this would go today, you guys. And I'm grateful that you've all been on the journey, because it's been super organic, and I hope healing, you know.
It's the greatest thing that's ever happened to me.
What is?
This journey, this path, like it's given me everything I've ever wanted. And it's taught me how to relook at success. And astrology single-handedly killed my depression, because it just came into such an understanding of myself and others. I can't even get mad at other people. It's like, oh, but see, this is why you do this, because like this is how you are. It's like, damn.
It's like kind of cute. It's like, right. That's cute. Yeah.
And I'm not a believer of using astrology to like excuse behaviors, but you can really see it through the chart. Like, you know, this is why they keep repeating these patterns. Like, you know, it makes me, the understanding is just so amazing. And it's allowed me, like, I think why I love what I do is basically what I do is I tell people how awesome they are with facts. I'm like, hey, like you're the shit. Like, you're amazing. Look. And it's the greatest privilege, because I'm helping restore that divinity to people who might have haven't been around people who've seen their worth. So I think it's the greatest honor that I'm able to kind of like serve and honor people like so.
All right. This has been revolutionary, and I'm super grateful. Thank you. You're right. In the beginning, you said we were going to do work together years ago, but the timing is much more perfect now. Couldn't agree more. I thank you for being here with us, and for being a beacon of light, and for being a steward of astrology, and one of the great translators of this language of light, which is the way that I see it. And I'm just so grateful. So thanks to all of you also for being here, for going on this ride with us today. And as always, for being a part of our community, for making astrology a part of your life. You know, we brought up censorship today, and it's a real thing. It's happening all over the place on all the platforms. And yes, there's some new platforms springing up, but still these are the biggest platforms where we broadcast. It's an invitation. I just invite you all to join our mailing list, because if for whatever reason we ever got censored or blocked or not allowed to have these shows for whatever reason, because I've heard even Facebook is coming out with a whole new agreement for their channels and their groups in October. So I invite you to go to astrologyhub.com, and you can sign up right there to get our weekly digest. And that way, no matter what happens with any platform, we'll always be able to stay in touch with you, which I would really love to be able to do. where do people find you if they want to see what you're up to?
I can be found on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram at the Peace Dealer, like drug dealer, but peace, love, and harmony. And my email is also thepeacedealer@gmail.com. And my website is also thepeacedealer.com. You can holla at me for a report or a consultation. And one thing I want to leave off with is my belief in God has definitely been restored. However, I've been struggling with my belief in love for what has been taught it is. Like I believe so much in truth, and I will say this conversation with you has definitely helped restore it. And how you say like God is love and you bring up love, it's definitely helping restore it's not like I don't believe in love, but I'm just looking very critically at love and really kind of like how I looked at with God, like just to see, because I believe love is real, right? I feel it's expressed through kindness, but I just want to understand it at such a deeper level. And I'm learning that it's not something you do intellectually. You got to open your heart. So I'll definitely work on that.
Same thing as God. It's the same thing as everything we've talked about. It's taking the truth and the light and just tweaking it a little bit so we can't trust it, because it's not what we've been told it is.
That's true.
It's so not what the songs are about. It's not what the media shows us. It's not any of those things. And that is a beautiful exploration for you. I'm excited for you because you're going to get to see the truth. Like it's part of the distortion. It's part of the distorted reality that once you'll feel it, what it really is, I have no doubt you'll come back to love. There's no question.
And I agree. Like, I think that's more what I should have said. Like, I've just been skeptical of what we've been taught love is versus what love really is. Yeah.
Good. The skepticism is good, and it's going to lead you on the right path. So thanks everybody so much. Thank you, Peace Dealer. Your name fits you, suits you very well. All right. Take care, everybody. And we'll see you on the next episode.